inviting on stage for the first panel discussion of the day. These are our speakers. First up, Prateek Gupta, founding partner at Foxy Moron and Zoo Media. Then we have Alicia Khanna, Senior Marketing Manager, Alt Balaji. Shrinik Gandhi, Chief Executive Officer at White Rivers Media. And Saloni Surti joining us back, Editor, Social Samosa and Media Samosa, who will be moderating this session. So with this, I now invite all our wonderful panelists joining us, and they're going to be discussing on the topic, understanding the blueprint for entertainment marketing. Thank you once again for joining. I can see Prateek. Hello, how are you, Prateek?
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, Alicia. Hi, Shrenik.
Hi, Saloni.
Hi, how are you all doing?
Hi, guys.
Hi, Prateek. Hi, Shrenik. Hi, Saloni. Bhavna.
Thank you. Over to you, Saloni.
Thank you, Bhavna. Hi, guys. I'd just quickly like to welcome everyone on the panel. It is really great to have you all over here. And I'd like to start by wishing you all a very happy World Social Media Day. Right? And thank you. And on that note, I'll just quickly set a little bit of context on the current, panel that we've organized. So, the whole idea is entertainment overall has always been at the heart of the Indian content ecosystem. It was something also highlighted by Aman from Google in one of the earlier sessions, where the initial vast user base from India on YouTube came for entertainment content, right? And in the last 2 years, the demand for entertainment content has only increased for various reasons, where I think it wouldn't be wrong to call it an essential commodity per se, right? So before we start, it would be great if you guys could just share your thoughts on what does entertainment marketing mean in today's context, to each one of you. We'll probably start with Anisha.
Hi. Okay, so Saloni, for me, I think any brand whose product offering literally entertains a user is going to be defined as entertainment marketing, and I think each different types of brands are competing in this space, and it's possibly not only OTT, it's even maybe a short format app. We are also pretty much competing with any app that is going to entertain you, whether it is sports or maybe even which was TikTok or now the new format apps as well that are kind of coming in the Indian market today, all fighting for a consumer's time and entertainment need.
Okay. Shrenik, if you could chime in.
Sure. So yeah, seconding Alicia's thoughts, I think any kind of marketing which uses the power of celebrities. Celebrities could be sports, it could be Bollywood or OTT, any kind of celebrity-driven marketing. Having said that, entertainment marketing comes with various cohorts. First cohort being Bollywood. Your classic Bollywood marketing. Second cohort within entertainment marketing in India is OTT. So multiple, again, OTT is the current big thing. I think 3 years back, I remember we were in a similar conversation, and the conversation was, will OTT be the future? I think the conversation today is OTT the present, right? Then the next cohort is Hollywood marketing in India, right? Then the next cohort would be music marketing. Music plays a very big role in entertainment in India. So there are multiple brands doing fabulous work in music, creating some record-breaking numbers. Multiple brands within India are creating global news. Say one of our clients, T-Series, happens to be the owner of the largest YouTube channel in the world. They're soon to touch 200 million subscribers on YouTube, right? So they're at that scale. And the last cohort, I believe, in entertainment is GEC, right? Your classic entertainment channels, TV channels, right? So these are multiple cohorts within entertainment marketing, and we'll try and address certain marketing challenges and opportunities in each of these as we speak. Prateek, over to you.
Yeah.
I think Shrenik has covered everything. The only thing he left is news, which is the real entertainment in this country. But fairly genuinely, I think the spectrum of entertainment marketing in India has increased massively, right? Like I think it used to earlier just be a very packed 7 or 14 days or, like 3 weeks of marketing before a big release. But I think now with OTT platforms, it's become a lot more sustained in terms of building brand love, building brand loyalty, right? So from it just being, I hate to use the word moment marketing over here, but from it to being like a very packed 3-week calendar, it's now become also a long-term strategy for anybody, for channels, for brands, for music channels. Everybody wants to create media properties of their own and wants to have a long life with the consumers that are consuming their content. So I think while the cohorts, like I said, Shrenik has described, fairly well. And after the news, which provides us the greatest entertainment in this country, I think, that's how the entertainment landscape is today.
Yeah.
So, when we speak about the entertainment landscape, we are seeing like there are newer shows and movies coming in almost, every week, if not twice or thrice in a week. And then there's already a lot of existing and sourced and appointment content that is being brought over by a lot of channels and OTT platforms and so on, right? So, with this kind of clutter, how do you think entertainment brands can create a marketing plan that sort of rises up? And obviously,
Roni, I
growth
can't hear
comes.
you too clearly.
Saloni, you need to be a bit louder if you can.
Is this better?
A little bit.
It's still a little muffled.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is a bad day to try on new earphones. I really hope this is a little clearer now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, like I was saying, basically what I was saying was we have newer content coming in every day, right? So, in that scenario, what should a marketing blueprint look like which sort of helps your content stand out, break through the clutter? And this is given the fact that we are assuming that the content is really good, but you still need to get that kind of eyeballs and discoverability, right? So, what kind of marketing and distribution strategy does the blueprint need to entail? Probably start with Prateek.
So I think that's a very wide question, right? Like the good part about doing content marketing is that the content has its own flavor, right? As opposed to it being a FMCG product where the innovation is 5 times better and then it becomes 8 times better, and really the consumer is not able to see the value add, because he's not able to quantify what 5 times is and what 8 times is. But the definite advantage of entertainment marketing is that every content piece and the regularity in which the content is coming out has its own flavor. Right? One could be a horror story, one could be a love story, one could be a set in a certain time space, one could be about family, one could be about going out there. So it gives you different context to actually create moments of marketing or moments of content, or to be able to create a conversation in the digital ecosystem, whether it's with influencers, whether it's with different sorts of formats, which becomes a very, very essential part of what we're doing from a content marketing for the entertainment industry point of view. But the second part, which I said, is the fact that there is a longevity in terms of the consumer wanting to stick with a platform, a channel, or different kinds of actors and actresses, right? So there is lots of ways. If I'm a brand, if I'm an OTT brand, or if I'm a channel, I want my consumer to interact with me, right? So the simplest way of doing this is, do I have a genre through which I can get that person to become a channel lover or a platform lover or whatever you want to call it, right? Do I have a particular actor or an actress that the person is following, because of which the person can become, can stick to my content, look at the content I'm pushing out there, and also become a consumer of the content that I'm pushing out to them? Or is it the platform itself, right? Like in some cases, some people like a certain news channel, some people like a certain GEC channel, some people like a certain OTT platform. And do I need to increase brand love for the platform itself for me to be to stick there and be relevant? So strategies are varied, right? But the other part of this is that once you know what to talk about, is where the distribution of this content becomes fairly important, right? Because it's not only about you being the person who's igniting the conversation, it's about how many people can take that torch and take it to all the dark places who do not know anything about this content, which becomes equally very important. So in the entertainment space, context is supremely important. Purpose of creating that content is supremely important. And thirdly, the distribution of that content and distribution of that purpose is equally important. And as opposed to the past, coerced effort of being consistent is fairly very important as well. because gone are the days where you did like one release and moved on to the next. There is a reason for those that release to exist, and yeah, that's how we approach it.
Interesting.
Shrenik, if you could add on to it.
So I think again pretty fairly covered. Once your what is identified, the next big question is who, right? So as an entertainment brand, you have to identify your TG, right? Say, I'm sure Alisha would agree that say example, an Alt Balaji comes for a certain type of target audience, right? And it is probably a super hit in that type of target audience. Maybe Netflix comes with a different category of audience, right? So you need to identify who is your target audience and be comfortable with that space, right? As a OTT brand, you cannot please everyone, right? So the OTT brand or the content creator has to be content with the fact that it is okay that everyone maybe in their social circle may or may not like their content, right? But if you have an understanding of who's your target audience, right, once you identify that, go very deep in that target audience, try and hit across multiple aspects in the lifestyle of your target audience and create content for multiple aspects of the lifestyle of your target audience, right? So once you identify the sweet spot, go extremely deep in that, and then that's the only way to break clutter. Yeah.
Alisha, if you could take on it.
Yes, I think Prateek and Shrenik have covered a lot and given a lot of insights. There's one thing
of being the third one.
I think that there's one thing that I think a little differently, where I think that, of course, there is this importance of creating brand love and, getting the brand building done right. I also feel that, at times the shows are what drives the brand. And I think that is an approach that we've definitely taken for Alt as well. And, there are different types of shows, that brands have. If I'm going back to an example of Alt Balaji, there's a show that we released, which was called A Married Woman. And there's a show that released last year, say, Bichu Ka Khel. Both of them are talking to a very different audience, So at this point in time, it also depends on the content that is being created and really understanding that, who is this content who is this content for, who are you talking to? You're not necessarily talking to the same audience at every point in time. Also, I think content discovery is something that is, a big challenge for us right now. And to ensure that, you are reaching out to the right target audience basis the content offering that you have, or the basis the kind of content that you have created for a specific TG, also kind of becomes a little important.
Actually, sort of circling back to my question, content discovery is actually a very huge challenge, even for creators per se, and even for brands that have now gotten into content creation. And of course, there's a whole entertainment segment. So, probably if you could highlight a few tactics that you have, practiced or put into use for increasing content discoverability, and it has sort of helped you.
Can you come again, Saloni? Your voice was extremely muffled.
I am so sorry. Is this better, Alisha?
A little bit.
Okay. So I was saying, in terms of content discoverability, like you mentioned, and it has been a challenge. If you could share a few tactics, that has helped Alt Balaji, and if you could share it with the audience.
I think there are multiple. I think with the way trends and are changing by the day, I think what we did 6 months back is definitely not what we are doing right now. I think there's a big shift that happened for us definitely post the pandemic and pre-COVID, and currently what we are in right now. Our efforts have become digital first. Our efforts have become to focus on the next set of audience, which is definitely coming from different platforms, whether it is getting people from short format apps. TikTok was an important medium for us, and now of course there are different new mediums in that way. Influencers is something which has become very important, and all of this kind of helps increase the word of mouth. Eventually what you are saying as a brand is a one-way communication, but when these different third-party mediums can work together with you, it only helps increase the word of mouth and get the conversation starting, which helps people then eventually discover content. So influencers again is a very important strategy. I think most brands that have an always on influencer campaign, it works better for them. Memes again, I think it's something very important. And one of the things with OTT specifically, which is different from movies, is that you do not have a weekend that you need to get maximum results on. Of course, there are, you want the show to become famous when you have launched it and in the immediate coming weeks, but you also have a library. You don't have an end date for your campaign to stop. So how you utilize third-party memes, how do you utilize, everyone, how do you utilize every medium outside your platform also is very important at this point in time for all.
And in terms of discoverability, marketing tactics, if Pratik, you could also add something.
No, I mean, first things first, I don't think that you can look at content without the medium that's carrying the content, right? I think, I mean, some of the mediums are organic, like Alisha said, some of the mediums are paid. And you have to look at it from both, right? Like when Alisha is launching something at Old Balaji, it's a priority to get as many people to watch it on the weekend that they launch it, right? But that same content is also going to rest on her platforms to get newer people to subscribe to Old Balaji, right? So again, what is the lifespan of that content, and what can the content do in different forms of media activities, right? Memes, for me, memes is one other way of actually being able to discover content, right? Today, a lot of the news that I sadly consume is through memes, right? Like I look at somebody suddenly trending and I'm just like, abhi isne kya kiya, right? Like, and then you go out and find out, what has happened. If, I remember the EU just did not accept Covishield as one of the Green Pass, vaccines. And I was like, why the hell is everyone talking about Covishield? And that's when I went and found out that, okay, EU has banned, Covishield. So we have to understand the consumption patterns of the audience that you're actually, actually going after. And therefore, the strategy that you're actually deploying for any sort of marketing, not even entertainment, is a content and a media mix. And you can't look at one without the other, because you can be very happy about creating content, but if only you're going to see it and the 10 people at the agency are going to see it, then who are you actually patting your back for?
Interesting.
True. Shanik, if you could also add on.
Yeah. So yeah, other than these points, I think there are a few other points which are very relevant in terms of amplifying any content. The first one, I believe, is affinity, right? So each brand has a certain set of loyal audience, right? These are audiences who are low-hanging fruits. They are going to consume any and every content which is going to come on the app, right? Or from the favorite celebrities who generally feature on the app, right? So how do you create content for the affinity, for the highest affinity audience? So I think that's the first thing. You could possibly treat them well, give them freebies, give them exclusive access, right? So they become your torchbearers to spread the word, right? This industry is based on FOMO, right? You wouldn't watch a content, or you are less likely to watch a content if it is not recommended by a friend. And you would like to be in a place where you are recommending content to your friends, right? So it works both ways, right? So how do you create content which is for your most audience which is most affiliated with the brand? So I think that's point number one. Point number two, point number three is time decay, right? We need to understand that timing is everything when it comes to content, right? If I tell you that, hey, you know what, I'm giving you scoop about the last episode of GOT today, you're not going to, of course, click on that ad, right? But if I were to give that scoop one day before the release, that might get maximum CTRs, right? So one has to understand that, what's the best time, what's the sweet spot to kind of hit the audience, right? Also, there's a lot of competition, right? So there are multiple releases happening, multiple parallel releases happening, right? So as a brand, how do you time your content well so that your audience, your second layer of audience, also love to consume content? So all of those things, matter when you create content or distribute it.
So guys, when we speak about timing and we speak about memes and moment marketing, we've seen that over the last couple of years, they have become a very important, even a yardstick to measure the success of a content, right? Because we see a lot of organic memes and jokes coming up. And obviously that led to even entertainment brands leveraging it to create conversation. So, and when there is a very large conversation about memevertising and moment marketing going on, where do you think the whole thing stands from an entertainment marketing point of view? How much does it work for the brand and does it lead to the completion of a CTA?
Yeah.
Shani, if you could take it.
Yeah. So I would love to disagree to that point. Memes are not a yardstick to measure the success of a show. Only the right content is the true matrix or the true yardstick
One
to
second.
measure.
Anyway, I'll add one more thing. Memes or moment marketing is not the yardstick to even measure any brand being successful on social media. I mean,
Absolutely.
I think I'd just like to table this once and for all, right? Like, I think we're over celebrating this.
Memes.
Yeah, we're over celebrating the fact that, oh my God, we were able to turn this around in 1.5 hours and then say work-life balance. I mean, that's just my particular take on it, but that's
So
sorry.
actually, we do have a session around the whole thing,
Yeah,
reality
Preetham
check
is
around
doing-
moment marketing
Yeah.
in the next few hours, and there is a whole discussion about how moment marketing has become a way to reach out to the industry itself, right?
It is. It really
Yeah.
is.
So that is obviously there is a larger conversation, but that is the whole point, right? Where does moment marketing and memeatizing stand for entertainment brands, and how much is it actually, effective? Because if we remember the GOT trend and we remember the Sacred Games trend, and everyone went bonkers with memes, right? And it sort of gave brands and agencies a reason to harp on it. But actually, वो कितना काम आ रहा है, from a ROI objective point of view.
So it gives you immediate recall, but that's it. It ends there. Do you remember any brand which did a fabulous GOT meme? Or do you remember a meme which was done on GOT by a brand? For sure you don't. But if I ask you about GOT, I'm sure there'll be 100 answers or 100 conversations we can have, right? So that's the whole point, right? Memes are perishable, right? Same meme may not be as funny the next day, right? So one has to understand that. So that brings me to another point. Firstly, so memes are not a yardstick. So as I'm sure Alisha might also agree to the statement, they are not a yardstick. They are a good thing to have in a brand strategy, right? First. Second, the only thing which works is consistent great content, right? Content could be text, video, audio, imagery, anything, but consistent great content is the only thing which works. Memes are one of the things which can be a part of the larger plan, right? And so nothing but consistency works, as simple as that, right? Memes could get you certain recall maybe for a day or two or maybe a week at max, but post that no one remembers.
I mean,
So,
to add to that also, like, you need to consistently do meme marketing also, right? That's the irony. That's the irony of any sort of marketing that you do, right? Like, consistency is key, right? So for us, for instance, with the Rabbit Hole, which is our video solutions agency inside of Zoo, we work on Netflix, right? I think our biggest learning from Netflix is that we need to build a community, right? That community will be of people who are basically just dining on different pieces of content on a regular basis, right? And the regularity of the content and the regularity with which we're able to build brand love to different audiences that we have identified inside of our marketing ecosystems is what is consistently important to us, right? We created an IP called Behansplaining, where we review our own content, right? Behansplaining now becomes a vehicle for us to market our own shows when we're launching inside of the Netflix platform, right? It becomes our own media property to do work over there, right? So, and we have a show which is called Now Meming on YouTube that we do for Netflix, where we review the memes that people make on Netflix. But that also we have to do consistently. Mm-hmm. So, as everything, content is king, and consistent content is the real kingdom, right? Like, if you cannot create this consistent stream of content, you're going to be nowhere in the long term.
Makes sense. I'm taking that thought to Alisha. We've seen Alt Balaji has used meme marketing actively and consistently, consistency being the keyword, over the years, and for a lot of new shows that the platform has come up with. So how has it worked for the brand? Any advice, learning tips that you could share?
I think it's, again, like what Prateek said, it's very important to consistently do it. While there is a program that is going on for all the library shows, so that it stays relevant, it stays you get that recall factor coming from memes, and it becomes very important. Of course, when there are new show launches, it's more important for us to, blast more memes on that. And that's how I think people, also relate to shows. That's how people relate to dialogues. And, especially when you have shows which have very quirky dialogues and, strong punchlines. Meme marketing is an important medium, not the biggest medium, but a very important medium, definitely, to, reach out to your audience. I also think that, when it comes to trying to create as many conversations, or when you want to get a larger reach for your campaign, it is a very effective medium. And, from what we've seen, I think just a couple of lakhs investment and just that initial push that you get, you'll immediately get like a reach of 30, 40 million, depending on how correctly you have done a campaign.
Right.
So you can't take away, meme marketing from our campaign and the campaign will still succeed. I think it is a very integral part. And, not only that, I think a lot of meme marketing has created influencers as well. And I think, that there is, there's an influencer called BC Auntie who's who's growing today. And her fame started with these memes that we had created for Apharan, where we seeded her memes and, she became very famous. And today she is a content creator. Of course, she's created some fantastic pieces of content, but, it started with that. I don't think Seema Auntie would have become as famous with Indian matchmaking if it had not been the memes as well. So, it does help create certain recall. It is an integral part of any show's marketing campaign, but if it's done correctly and, it has to be done consistently as well.
No, absolutely. I think meme marketing definitely creates the legends out of great actors, right? Especially in this sort of a space, right? The memes just solidify you in history in terms of just the relevance that you have. It's a very important part of pop culture that we cannot ignore. And yeah, important part of the marketing mix. But again, even that has to be done consistently, right? Like you can't come in and come out and just say, as a part of the 100 things I'm doing, I'm going to do 2 things with meme marketing. Like for Alisha, it has to be show meme marketing. It has to be content meme marketing. It has to be platform meme marketing. And I'm sure she's also going after performance meme marketing today, right? So there are different aspects to even meme marketing. And that's what we need to recognize, right? That there's content and there is the distribution of that content or what objective it actually fulfills for you.
Yeah, I'd actually like to add on what Alisha said, like even with the whole Seema Taparia moment and the few other characters that we have seen go viral and become meme moments over the years, it certainly isn't a yardstick, so to say, but it does definitely make for a winning moment for the brand and the piece of content proposed, right? Where it becomes like a organic piece of communication which is circulating everywhere from WhatsApp to Instagram to more niche platforms. Yeah, but definitely. So I think the key here, according to our speakers, is consistency and using it correctly, which obviously makes sense. Okay, so moving on, when we speak about memeizing, we speak about influencers, we speak about collaboration and a lot of other things. But for entertainment brand, everything sort of ties up to, does it lead to me downloading a platform or to a person walking into a theater pre-COVID days or whatever the version of that is now. So how do you calculate ROI on entertainment marketing efforts, and how do you tie it back to the core objective of a user coming on the platform or the theater and consuming the final product? We could start with you, Alisha.
ROI, your end result ROI literally has to be the money that you've been able to get, right? Whether for movies, it was getting somebody walk in the theater and, what is the collection that you have made? What's your box office collection? Or maybe for OTT at this point in time, then what is the kind of subscription that you've been able to generate? And, I think it's very difficult for each of these activities to directly get and understand the kind of subscription that they have. So there are, of course, 2 ways in which we would work, right? One is kind of getting that kind of awareness going out, getting that word of mouth out, getting people to talk, creating the conversations, getting the reach. And of course, then performance marketing, which is, eventually converting those people and getting them onto the platform and fulfilling the end goal and the end result of eventually getting the subscribers and getting them to watch the show. But having said that, I think while we do all of this, at the end of the day, it is the content that is going to sell. All the efforts that we take will get people to watch and sample 1 episode, sample 2 episodes. And after that, it is the word of mouth and the content that will sell.
Interesting. So I would like to speak about an example. So we've been doing a lot of work in Bollywood Again, just to give you certain numbers, 2019, we marketed about 60 plus Bollywood movies. So practically almost every week there was a movie we were marketing. We realized that Bollywood marketing fundamentally has a problem. So there are 5 or 6 assets which every Bollywood movie has: trailer, song 1, song 2, dialogue 1, dialogue 2, and then final release. Right? Problem is each one of them are center staged by a different entity in the ecosystem. Like a trailer would be led by a star or a talent. Your dialogue 1 promo would be front led by a production house. Music, the songs would be led by the music company producing it. And ticket booking, the final call to action would happen via, say, Book My Show or Paytm or whoever is the ticketing partner. We had an advantage where we worked with the entire ecosystem, right? So we created this product wherein at the trailer stage, so the name of the product is Unilink, right? So at the trailer stage, we get the talent to put Unilink instead of a normal link or a normal Bitly link. It's a very smart link. What it does is it creates an entire customer journey. What used to happen before is there were parallel customer journeys created. Your asset 1 is the strongest asset. Your trailer generally is the strongest asset. What if someone joins your movie marketing journey, say from a dialogue 2 stage? He's not going to be as impressed. He might not even connect, right? Or what if your ticket booking links are shown to someone who's not even seen any of your 5 assets? So kya hoga, right? So that's why we created Unilink, where in trailer stage pe we put in Unilink. People who've seen my trailer would be shown my song. People who've seen trailer and song 1 would be shown song 2. People who've seen all 3 would be shown dialogue. People who've seen all 4 would be shown the second dialogue. And people who've seen all 5 would be shown my ticket booking link, right? So essentially what we could get is crazy ROIs, right? We got mad CTRs. I remember for one of the movies we did, we got about 5x jump in the ticket bookings in terms of with the same budget, right? Also, another advantage is there are a lot of overlapping fan clubs. So 3 movies we worked with, which I have top of mind recall. We did work for Good News, which was an Akshay Kumar Kareena movie. Second movie we worked with was an Ajay Devgan movie called Tanaji, right? And they both were coming up with a movie launch which happened just pre-pandemic called Suryavanshi. We realized that we have active data sets of people who have consumed 5 assets of each of these movies. So it made absolute sense to kind of showcase our trailer of Suryavanshi to these people, right? So ROI ROI, of course, while ticket booking and the final mullah is the real ROI, there are a lot of things which makes campaigns more efficient, right? Wherein if you look at the 3-year balance sheet of a production house, your overall marketing campaigns are much more efficient. So that also is ROI. Pratik, over to you.
Okay, so ROI is horses for courses, right? Like it's different ROI for different sorts of people, firstly, right? Like secondly, I think that like for the longest time in my understanding of entertainment marketing, it was very, very templatized. Exactly what Shainik said, right? Like everybody came in and said, what is the package? Right? That's the conversation that people used to have, and I never knew how to respond to it because like what is a package when you're doing creative marketing? And over a period of time, like I said, there are absolutely 2 parallels that are running inside of any business, right? One is to build brand love, and the second is to build ROI in the quintessential terms of what we're trying to define ROI, right? For Alisha, the ROI is app downloads and subscriptions. For Shrenik, if he's doing movie marketing, the ROI is pretty much how many people went to the theater, right? But I think, like I said before, the marriage of content plus media is the answer to a lot of the questions and the objective that this content has been created for, right? For us and representing what we're doing at Netflix, brand love is our biggest ROI, right? We're saying that we're running brand love metrics to ensure that all the marketing that we do allows for the love for Netflix as the brand to increase, and also the kind of content that we're providing on that platform. Alisha rightly said that eventually the content will speak for itself, and whether the content does well or the content does not do well. And when you have such a clear ROI metric, the performance marketing can back that brand love, right? So as Shrenik is taking cohorts in terms of the marketing that he's done for other films and then making that interest cohort available with what we're doing, we're taking the cohorts of people who have engaged with us at a brand level, organically and inorganically, and trying to see how many of those people can we convert into subscribers. This is where content marketing and performance marketing actually come to a junction where you're able to create the real, I don't know, the real magic, right? Because we have a long-term brand love objective and we have an always on performance marketing objective. We're creating different pieces of content for each one of these, each one of these objectives. We're going after different mediums for each one of these objectives, and we're tracking different metrics for each one of these objectives, right? I mean, one of the things that we did recently, like we were doing this this movie called Jagame on Netflix, and it actually landed up creating a lot more brand love for Netflix. And when we did our metrics, we had a lot of we had a share of voice in terms of what we were able to do with the content in the South, and therefore were able to create the right sort of an impact. When we walk out of that conversation and we say we have brand love, and we're able to create brand love in a market where Netflix is focusing on creating brand love, it's an absolute victory. And obviously, each one of these metrics of brand love is also backed by key milestones that we put across for it. So it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things that we can that we continue to do, and yeah, it's fun. I mean, the space is fun because it continuously gives you a new thing to do every Friday.
From our audience on platforms.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Is this better?
Yeah.
So we do have a few questions from our audience.
Can't hear you, Saloni, at all.
Hello?
Yeah. Perfect.
So we do have a few questions from the audience on the platform, and I'll sort of try to summarize them and bring them down to
Sorry. Audible?
No. Saloni, just remove your mic, try into the phone, into the computer directly. I think it'll be a lot more helpful.
Is this better, guys?
Yep.
Yes,
Oh, it's awesome.
I should have tried that now, surely. Okay, cool. So we do have a few questions from our audiences, and I will try to summarize them and bring it out to one or two questions, right? So the first one question is around, like, a lot of OTT platforms do not directly support advertising platforms like Netflix, for instance. So how can brands, associate with the content they create in a non-intrusive manner?
Sorry, who doesn't support?
Come again.
OTT platforms like Netflix do not support direct advertising. So how can brands associate with them in a non-intrusive manner?
Oh, okay. So I'll take that. I'll take that question. Netflix does brand partnerships on its social media, which is also a media platform for them. So like, there's a lot of work that we do, with other brands who are going after the same audiences, and like, we're trying to incorporate them in the conversation, which is relevant to the audience. It does not do revenue maximization as branded content internally, which is the platform's business call in that sort of a sense. But the social media, like I said, right, is not only Netflix's way to get out to the world, but it's also a media platform that they're building for the long term, right? Like, if you have 10 million subscribers on YouTube and we have 5 million followers on Instagram, it automatically becomes a lot easier for us to market to them when something new is coming up, right? So they understand the long-term benefit of it. Obviously, all of this is until Zuckerberg decides to change the algorithm again. But up until that, we're fairly significantly correctly building this community, right? Because the community will eventually lead to consumption, and we do work with certain brands in that sort of a space, but it's not an overt business objective for them, and therefore they don't chase it.
I'll, if I may add, I'll slightly pivot. I'll go outside the realm of OTTs. I'll give you an example of an influencer marketing campaign we recently did. One so-called influencer had got pretty viral of lately, called as the Great Khali. Everyone was flocking into his comment section and asking him to do all sorts of impossible tasks. right? There were a few brands also who got into the brand wagon. They kind of did a few activities with him, but most of the activities, from what I understand, were very direct in nature, where they kind of, shove the products on the face of audience. It doesn't work. What we did instead for a brand we work with, again, I'm moving out of entertainment, for a brand called as Realme, right? It's the fourth largest mobile brand in the country. We got Khali to actually do some of the impossible tasks. Right, we did a very, very fun video. I'm sure you would have possibly seen the video as well. That is one of the most viral videos on Khali's page right now. It has crossed about almost 15 million views, 1.5 million likes, and about 30,000 plus comments on his page. Right. So imagine 30,000 comments on someone who, on a influencer who did not even have a million likes. Exactly. Right. Not even a million followers on his page maybe a month back. Right. Why did the content go so viral? Because we let Khali be authentic. We asked him to give only a single take for each of the shot. We asked him to do whatever he wants. We gave him about 100 plus options. We asked him to spend time with the product, and we asked him to actually create content. And you're seeing the power of genuine content, right? So genuinely created content by any influencer will travel. Sooner or later, it will travel for sure. So that's my answer.
Moving on to the last question from the audience. What kind of a role do ratings and reviews play, for entertainment products, and how do, what kind of a role do they play in the marketing blueprint? So this includes ratings like IMDb, Google reviews, etc. This is what a user is asking. If any one of you could take it up.
Alisha, you want to speak?
I'll say. I think
favorite IMDb.
All three.
One of our favorite platforms, right?
Sorry,
Okay.
we work together, so that's why it's
Yeah. Okay, so once you've launched the show, I think creating that FOMO. How is it that you're telling people that you cannot be missing this? If you miss the show, you're missing something really great, and all the perception that you create is also coming somewhere from the ratings. People are talking about the ratings. We had a show right now that we just launched called Broken but Beautiful. And, I think for the last 2 weeks, the entire conversation has been where the users are talking about how it has been one of the highest rated shows on IMDb, how it reached one of the top, the episodes ranked on one of the top 40 episodes on IMDb as well. And it got a rating of, we reached a rating of 4.3, and then it kind of dropped down. And it was not only that, at that point in time, IMDb is one platform. There are several other platforms as well, whether it is your Ormax or your OTT, Ormax or COTT, or every week Film Companion releases their most streamed. Topping these charts it's not most important in terms of the consumer, but it is very important for the media as well to kind of create this perception, and we can take these data points and then further create more perception and just amplify how this is not a show to be missed. It just drives the entire perception that we want to create. So in that sense, I think all of these platforms, whether it's IMDb, it's Google reviews, or any of these other formats that are doing any kind of reporting is also very important. And not only that, but if I'm going to be spending an X amount of time or vesting an X amount of time watching a show, I just want to Google it. I just want to know whether it's actually going to be worth my while. I don't want to spend 2 hours and then realize at the end is shit, and why have I spent 2 hours, and what have I spent 2 hours for, or 3 hours, depending on the content piece that you're watching. So It's extremely, extremely important. All of these parameters are important, in my opinion.
Also, I would like to add, so one of the shows we marketed, one of my favorite show as a consumer, and I'm glad that we were given an opportunity to market the show. The show is called Scam 1992, the Harshad Mehta story. It released last year. It's one of the highest rated shows on IMDb, about 100,000 plus, 9.5 plus reviews on IMDb. So that's, I think it is breaking the record of Breaking Bad as well. So it's at that scale, right? What we realized is we must empower the customers, empower the audience, and encourage them to review the show. Whenever as a OTT platform or as any content creators, there'll be highs and lows. But if you know that our content piece is working great, you got to empower the audience or encourage the audience to kind of, rate the show on IMDb, rate the show across multiple platforms. And we realized that suddenly, the kind of reviews we got in the first week itself on IMDb were through the roof, right? The only thing which works is encouraging audience to kind of go out there, speak. Because again, going back to the whole FOMO aspect, everyone likes to speak about a show which they have watched, which they feel others may not have watched, right? And they would like to review that show, right? So in the initial days, in the first 10 days, if you focus efforts in terms of creating the whole chatter, I think it's half job done.
And on the other hand, you always have people who like to watch stuff right from the bottom of the IMDb ratings, right? So it's that everyone has a consumer. And I think, jokes aside, I think it's very, very important. And it's also like Alicia said that, just using the IMDb ratings, even for performance marketing for them, can become a lot more valuable. So there are lots of reasons to be able to get the right sort of perception and the value on ratings, and everybody is very conscious of what they want to consume today, right? The options are so many, right? We spend most of the times just scrolling through what we want to watch versus watching it. So, we want to take conscious decisions. And if this content is providing you the ability to make these conscious decisions, then we're good to go, I think.
Yeah, and also you mentioned yardstick before a few questions. I think reviews of the show are a good yardstick for the marketing team to understand whether what scale of monies to pump in on the show after it is released. So you could consider that as one of the important yardsticks.
That we will conclude the session for today. We do have a few questions, and I can send it to you guys personally, and we can make sure that the audience get the answers. But anyways, thank you guys for your time and the insights. It was indeed a great session. Over to you, Bhavna.